What? What is this?
So slow to catch on.
Look at those monsters!
Relax, beautiful.
Hello everybody and welcome to Typewriter Sessions Field Report. So this is our first episode of this. This is just a little sort of spin-off of Typewriter Sessions where we are just going to sort of round up some of the news and some of the theories of, you know, upcoming titles and everything else. And in this very first episode we're going to be discussing everything to do with Resident Evil Requiem. So this is our Road to Requiem episode. So, of course, I'm Brett, and as always, I'm joined by James.
Hello!
And yeah, this is it. We're on the hype train, aren't we, James?
We are. I mean, we're riding that hype train right out of that tunnel with a big fiery explosion behind us.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 style. But yeah, I'm really excited for it, and you know, we're recording this on the 8th of Feb, and I'm hoping to get it out in the next couple of days. So we're still a few weeks out.
We are.
But can't come around quick enough. Actually, you know what? I think that's unfair because I think like it's come around really quick.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like from that sort of first official announcement, it feels like it was a very fast turnaround. I guess like we're used to nowadays games being sort of like hyped for years in advance. I mean, it's, you know, pretty common now that you'll get your first look at the whatever, you know, the sort of summer, not E3 conferences or at the Game Awards. You might get, you know, like 3 years advance that something's coming. So the fact that we got less than a year's
100%. It was announced at the Summer Game Fest, June 6th, 2025.
Yeah. So yeah, like barely, not even 9 months.
Yeah,
from announcement to release is pretty incredible.
I think they've clearly like realised that you know, Capcom have anyway, that the best thing for them to do, because I feel like that's been the case with a lot of the Resident Evil titles. I think they've decided that, you know what, we're not going to announce them until we know we're actually on track, that we're going to release it, because I feel like there was a really quick turnaround for 8. For the remake of 2 and 3, remake of 4.
Yeah,
I feel like, you know, by the time they were announced, they said they were coming, and I was like, we're not going to get it that quick, and then we did.
Yeah,
you know, so I think it's been a really quick turnaround. So yeah, it's going to be released as you know, if you're listening to this, you'll likely know when it's going to be released. But February 27th, it's coming to all formats: PS5, Xbox XS, PC. It'll be available over Steam and on the Epic Game Store, which I think is a first. If I remember rightly, which is why they're doing some sort of collaboration with Fortnite. So I think we'll touch on that shortly. And then it's getting a release on Nintendo Switch 2 with cloud streaming availability through GeForce Now. So
is it just cloud gaming on Switch 2? It's not like natively running from the hardware, or is that an option?
I believe it's running natively as well.
Oh, okay. So is it maybe just like higher performance from cloud streaming?
Yeah, potentially. Because I remember that when they released the other games on the original Switch, they were cloud-based, weren't they? But apparently they ran quite nicely.
Yeah, because I know there was just in the past few days, there was a little sort of Nintendo Direct, wasn't there? And they sort of reported on the Switch 2 port, and a lot of the press outlets in the past few days have you know, been releasing sort of videos and articles saying how like really impressed they were with just how well it was, because they were showing Pragmata off as well and Switch 2, weren't they?
Yes.
And they were saying both that and Requiem were like surprisingly sturdy ports.
I mean, the Switch 2 is a jump up in hardware performance and power. I don't know. It might very well be a case of it's only available because of streaming and through streaming. So I don't know on that for certain, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool that they are releasing it on there. But I've been very tempted to get that Resident Evil collection that they've released, where it's like the new trilogy, so 7, 8, and 9 all together.
The gold editions,
yeah,
isn't it?
And it comes in like a really nice looking box. But I'm really tempted to get it just for the sake of my collection. But then at the same time, I'm like, it's just a box. It's like it's just a sleeve with 3 cases inside it.
That's you could throw that argument at any physical edition of a game now, unless it's a real like deluxe edition that comes with all kinds of gizmos.
Yeah.
Every sort of, if you're buying a boxed game now, it's just a box with a plastic disc in it that is.
Yeah. It is. It is.
But if you want to be that much of a pessimist, but
yeah. I mean, it's true. It's true, and I do. That's why I am sort of really toying with getting it, because I don't necessarily feel strongly that way, but then at the same time I'm like, it's a lot of money for something that I'll already own.
I guess it depends if you think you'll make use of it and actually play the Switch versions.
Well, I won't.
Well, there you go. Well, there you go. That's your answer to that conundrum. If you don't think
that's
you're going to
put to bed. You see, and that's the thing. I just don't think I would. I'd literally have it just for the sake of having it on the shelf, and that's why I'm like, but then. But at the same time, it'd be really cool to have that on the shelf, because that's one of those I can imagine being quite rare.
Yeah,
Nintendo have this tendency.
Many of them.
Yeah, Nintendo don't put things into print for a very long time, do they?
No.
And nearly everything that they release tends to have a very short, like, production span.
Yeah, got to keep those prices up.
Yeah, Nintendo know what they're doing. Yeah. So obviously we've got the protagonist in this one being Grace Ashcroft, who's an FBI analyst, and she is being sent to investigate some murders. And the name Ashcroft is a returning name from a lesser-known explored title, being Resident Evil Outbreak.
Yep.
Her mum being reporter Alyssa Ashcroft. Now, I can't help but feel like this is all a bit of a red herring, because there's been a lot of theories going around about what that first monster was that we saw.
Yeah.
And there was theories that it was maybe Lisa Trevor that's further evolved, having escaped the mansion and sort of living in the ruins of Raccoon City. But then there's also theories that it's some sort of tortured, imprisoned, mutated Alyssa Ashcroft.
There are.
But I'm just wondering, is it a red herring?
I think it is. I think they knew exactly what they were doing with those early trailers, just sort of teasing that big stalker monster, because they knew that people were going to fly off on all these like mad theories. But I think the more that's been revealed about the game, especially in that last sort of it's like showcase video they released a month or two back, where they've made it clear that there are multiple sort of big mutated stalkers, because there's the big chunky dude as well. So I think that was actually just a massive red herring, and that they're not actually, they're just monsters, and because they've said now there's multiple, you're going to encounter multiple enemies of that sort of that type.
Yes, and I think this is it, and I think they knew exactly what they were doing by using that Lisa Trevor sound effect from the original Resident Evil remake sound. Like, I really do think they were like, let's get people talking. Yeah. The more people talk about it, the more it's out there on social media. It's free publicity for the game. The more people talk about it, and I do feel like this whole thing is a red herring. Do I think that Alyssa Ashcroft will make a return? I don't know, actually. I don't know. I feel like, for the sake of the story, Alyssa will be dead, but I think her part in it will be pivotal to the plot.
Is there... Am I just misremembering? Was in some of the footage that they've released earlier on, is there a part where it seems like there's either some sort of prologue or maybe even a flashback at some point where you're playing as Alyssa?
You're either playing as Grace with Alyssa, or you're playing as Alyssa with Grace, but I think you might be playing as a younger Grace with Alyssa.
Right, yeah.
And it looks like they're trying to escape something.
Yeah, you're definitely playing part of the game with Alyssa, so there is some sort of...
And she's got like a red coat and everything. But yeah, I think... I do think, there's a bit of a... it's a bit of a red herring, and I think I think Alyssa will be indeed dead. That's my theory. But I think she's going to be referenced multiple times throughout the game in terms of like all of this story is going to have come about because of her work and her research.
It would be very strange for them to have picked her daughter, who was like up until this game's announcement not a known
Didn't even
character.
exist. Yeah.
So it would be odd for them to have been that specific about who the protagonist of this game was going to be without it heavily tying back into the sort of Outbreak story.
I'm going to put this out there, but I'm really hoping that the reason they've like spoken about Alyssa Ashcroft and that they've seemingly just pulled this character out from this very relatively unknown Resident Evil title from somewhere way back is that maybe finally, because they can never seem to get an online version of Resident Evil working up and running and right because they've done reverse and all this other kind of stuff, maybe, just maybe, we're going to get a remake of Outbreak.
Do you think?
Can you imagine? Because we will talk about this game in an upcoming episode. It's not that far away in terms of the games we're covering. And we will be getting to it before long. But we never here in UK and I think Europe never got to experience Resident Evil Outbreak as an online game. Yeah,
they could. I mean, even just like a port, even just as a spruced up port of those
HD
original
release.
2 games, but you know, Capcom and the Resi team specifically seem far more into remaking than they do. I mean, look how long it took them to port just like the original trilogy onto modern consoles. I mean, it shouldn't have been a big deal that, you know, Director's Cut 2 and 3 got dumped onto PS Plus last year, but it was because they just held onto those games. So it seems like they'd be far more likely to actually do a full remake than just give us access to.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see if we'd get some sort of... I kind of feel like it needs it. I mean, we've got the infrastructure now for really good online gaming, as we know. And I think the whole concept of Resident Evil Outbreak running as a remade game now would be great. And I'm just hoping that the reason they've decided to link back to this very, you know, unless you're a relatively big Resident Evil fan, we've got this character that's been referenced from a game that was very much forgettable.
Yeah.
So hopefully they've done it for a reason. It's very much a strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, they've, you know, we know they've usually got multiple games in sort of various processes of production. I mean, think at some point they must have had 7, RE2 remake, RE3 remake, and Village all in some form of like planning and production at the same time. Definitely 7, 2, and 3 must all have been simultaneous because there was only like 3 years in between the releasing. So.
I was going to say it's definitely 7, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
You know, even if Village was just in some sort of planning.
Yeah, I mean, Village must have overlapped 2 and 3, if not, but you know, Biohazard. But
yeah, they were definitely working on.
So I don't think it would be a stretch of the imagination to think that there's at least a couple of more projects like being worked on. I mean, it's a fairly good bet that the sort of rumoured Code Veronica remake is going to be announced at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about like 30th anniversary type stuff. I mean, this is going to be the year of Resident Evil announcements, I think, and you know, what better time to do it than when it's you know, we were talking in the last episode where we were just talking about Resident Evil 3 Nemesis Part 1, and we spoke about like how at that stage when Capcom was wanting to capitalise on Resident Evil and have multiple projects on the go at any one time, well, yeah, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think that even with the money and the ability that Capcom has to produce games now, that they won't be doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we keep talking about remakes, well, the two that keep getting thrown around are Zero and Code Veronica, and I think of those that needs a remake more than any, it's got to be Code Veronica. You know, I mean, me replaying it, it hasn't aged as well as what Zero has, and Code Veronica is definitely more in need of a remake. It's definitely stuck in that early 2000s of like where films are. They all look like a John Woo film, you know. It's very evocative of its time.
Yeah, very much so. It was.
And when I was playing it, I was just like, oh my god, it's like it really is like just a time capsule, and not necessarily in the best way either. So it's definitely in need of it. I mean, I've still got great memories of Code Veronica, and I still do think it's a really, really great game. But yeah, when I was playing it on my YouTube channel, I was just like, yeah, it's actually not that great anymore. You know, it's really, really in need of a spruce up. So I really hope that is the one that they do next.
Yeah, I think it will be. I've seen as well a lot of, and this feels more like sort of wishful thinking on the part of a certain faction of the fan base. A lot of sites reporting recently that like a 5 remake's coming, but I don't know whether that's just I don't know whether that's just people following the path of logic of being like, they did 2, they did 3, they did 4.
No, we'll do 5.
No, we'll do 5.
Yeah, I think that might be some of it, but I don't think we're ready for a remake of that yet. No. But I have seen a lot of that sort of theory pick up some traction recently that they're going to remake it, and I know that is it Roger Craig Smith, the voice actor of Chris in that one? I think that's his name. He's like said now that they're not doing it anytime soon, and I don't know if maybe he's just like he's either saying that because he doesn't know, or he's saying that to throw people off the scent a little bit. But yeah, I don't think we need one yet. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like again, in terms of a Resident Evil game, could it do with a remake? It probably could, just to tone it down, its ridiculousness a little bit. But...
And it's a 17-year-old game, you know, like much more recent games than that have had full ground-up remakes in the last few years, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, I think when you look at how many games are still either like completely locked to like a archaic console ecosystem, or at the very least are like, even if you can still play them on modern machines today, are very outdated. I think, Code Veronica, Zero, and Outbreak are probably like the strongest candidates. I know there's still a sort of vocal proponent of people that want one remade, even though one's already had possibly the most perfect remake of any video game of all time. But
well, funnily enough, there was a comment on one of our episodes on YouTube where someone said, "Okay, what's your favourite, and what do you think is the best remake?" And I mean, I replied as as myself, because it was on my YouTube channel, and I just said, well, me personally, I actually still think and believe that the Resident Evil remake is the unequivocal Resident Evil experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, although the other Resident Evil games and remakes that we've had have been absolutely incredible, but that as a game still has the horror element to it. It's still tense. You've got that incredible item management. You don't know, unless you've played the game a lot, should I say. You're just like, well, I don't want to go through that door in case I'm going to encounter something that I'm not prepared for. Like there's a boss fight in here and blah blah blah. It's just the perfect Resident Evil game.
It is, and it still looks beautiful as well.
It really does.
Especially if you're playing the sort of HD version on that was the sort of PS4, Xbox One era. But even now, like play that on a PS5 or a Series X, and it's just
Well, I'm playing through
outstanding.
My episodes of Zero are going out at the moment on my YouTube channel, and I'm playing through that. And again, it runs on the same engine, so it still looks just as good. and it still looks fantastic. And you don't play it thinking, "Oh God, this is an old game." You look at it and you're like, "Well, it looks this way because of the format of the fixed camera angles and everything else, and it doesn't look old. It's done very well to age the way it has." And I think again with if we're talking remakes, what's next? Then I think they would be better served remakes. I think Outbreak, because we need to fill that void of a Resident Evil Online experience. Because they keep trying to find ways of doing it, and nothing really seems to. Because what have they tried? They tried Reverse, didn't they, or something like that?
Yeah, there was Resistance.
Resistance, that was the other one.
And what was that? Abomination's Umbrella Corps.
Oh my God, yeah, that was right, wasn't it? I mean, I don't even know if that's still up and running now. I mean, I never even played it.
I think even Reverse is either just had its server shut down or is just about to have its server shut down.
Yeah.
I think I installed Reverse, and I don't think I ever loaded it up.
Yeah. It's 8 years. Oh my God. It's quite old as well on Umbrella Corps. But Resistance was released in 2020.
Yeah.
Wow. Crazy. I mean, that Umbrella Corps is still available on Steam. Interesting. Wonder how much support that gets. Interesting. Slightly gone off topic.
Yeah, we really have. We've gone down a
Resident Evil rabbit hole. But the other, protagonist of the game, why did they deny this for so long? Is it because they just wanted to announce it on their terms? I mean, they'd have been better just not addressing it at all. But the fact that they came out and said, "Oh no, look, Leon's not in it," but then it turned out that he was, and then he was leaked anyway by Sony of all people.
Yeah. Well, if you go back and look, there were some very careful choices of words. I think was it the statement something in that first sort of preview video that they released when it was like talking heads with the game director and stuff, and he said, "Oh, we tried to envision a horror game based around Leon, and we just couldn't. We couldn't make it work." It's like he didn't technically say
Leon's
not in the game.
Yeah.
It's just
because that's it. We're of course talking about Leon Kennedy making his return, and I think he said, "Oh, well, Leon's not a good fit for horror."
Yeah.
Because he's too able to defend himself and all the rest of it. So we needed a new protagonist, and that's where we get Grace from. And it's like, yeah, okay, I remember thinking that when I watched the interview, I was like, well, you've sort of denied that Leon isn't in the game, but without saying that Leon's not in the game. It was a very carefully choiced set of words, wasn't it? But he's back, and that's given us 2 gameplay features. So we've got 2 stories. I really hope though that it's just not really like. You see, they've tried to do this before with Resident Evil, where they've tried to give us different ways of playing to experience different types of Resident Evil that we've had over the years. And Resident Evil 6 was one of those examples where it's like, well, we're going to give you a really action-oriented scenario, which is Chris's story.
Yeah.
We're going to give you Leon's story, which is a bit more sort of classic Resident Evil. Fucking bullshit. It was just as action-packed as fucking Chris's. Honestly, this game's a monstrosity. And then they did Jake and Sherry, which was like being chased by the Oosternork or whatever it was called. And that's meant to invoke the be constantly being pursued like in Nemesis. And it was just like, yeah, but who asked for this? Who asked for this fucking monstrosity of a game? You're making this up, and you've given us 3 scenarios that all feel very much the same anyway. And anyway, we're going off on topic again, but I think my point is that I hope that with these 2 games sort of running side by side, will they be able to like coalesce into one seamless game?
My hope is that because with like 6, you were But you were basically treated to like, it was almost like a bunch of separate mini campaigns, wasn't it? It wasn't a seamless experience. It was sort of like each one was a very distinct, situation unto itself. Whereas it seems like this is the story just continually flips backwards and forwards between the two perspectives. I'm not entirely sure yet. Have they explicitly said it's a? Do you have any control over when you change characters, or is it? Are we looking at like is it like an Alan Wake 2 situation where there are like points in the game where you're
made to shift? You
can you're even given the option, or is it just you play a chapter, or are we talking? Is this like Halo 2 where it's like now it's time to be the Arbiter, now it's time to be Chief again, now it's time to be the Arbiter, and it just unfolds, and you're just sort of told who you're controlling in this chapter.
I don't remember seeing anything specifically that tells you that you'll have one campaign and another campaign.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like the story narrative, a little bit like Code Veronica, where 1 minute you're playing as Claire, then the story shifts into Chris, and then you will be back as Claire again for a little bit, then you're Chris again. I think it's going to be a little bit like that, where the story's going to start, then Leon's going to come into it, then you'll switch back into Grace, and that kind of looks like that's what's happening. But obviously not confirmed yet. But I think that's going to be really jarring to play one very action-oriented game and then go into one where you've got to be a little bit more strategic. Because when you get into the flow of being fast-paced action, that's really hard to pull yourself back into being stealthy and strategic.
You could look at it from both angles, couldn't you? Because you could see it from the perspective of being it's a way of sort of like tension and release. You have so much where you're just tension builds and builds and builds as you're playing with Grace, and you're like gets you to the point where you feel like you're going to explode, and then it's like, and now here's Leon. Explode away. So like, that could end up work. It could be a really, really good flow because of that. But also I do worry to a degree, like you just said, that might work against it, because you do after a while get into a certain mindset, and
that's it. Because you get used to being a character that's like somewhat untouchable because of the skills and the abilities that you have at your disposal, and then all of a sudden you're like, right, wind it back now, because you can't go in there guns blazing because you're going to get your head ripped off. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes really. But
all of the sort of responses that they've just behind closed doors, they've been showing off that like 3-hour gameplay section to certain like press and things like that, and the responses from that seem to be positive in that it works switching between the two characters. But I also got the impression that sort of slice of the game that we were showing off, it was very much like a bookended. It was like you play as Leon, then there's a big stretch as Grace, and then they sort of end that demo with Leon again. So whether that's representative of like the flow and feel of the entire game or not is it'll be interesting, won't it? I mean, I think they probably have carefully designed that gameplay etc. because it sounds awful, but like people just want more Leon, don't they? I mean because of playing Resident Evil 4, we've also had him in 2, but like it's crazy. We spoke about this in our Resident Evil 2 episodes, but it's absolutely insane how he's become like the hero of the franchise, when this whole thing started with Chris and Jill. But like Leon's become the staple hero of the franchise, and I think people are like wanting to they just want to play more Leon. But I think it's. I mean, ultimately, I think it comes down to the fact that Leon's just got a bit more personality than Chris. He's a pretty boy. He was a bit of a moody, but still like kind of funny. Whereas Chris, I think, is a bit more. Well, he's just like the GI Joe. He's just like generic military guy.
That's it. I think Leon is a bit more kind of relatable in the sense of like all being. Can you imagine being put in a situation where you're way over your head? With you've got no idea how to experience, like navigate through this like this horror or whatever, and he's he's the rookie, isn't he? So I think people like that journey that they've got with Leon, that he's gone from being just this rookie cop to this extremely proficient agent, special agent, veteran, and the skills he's acquired along the way, like Liam Neeson.
Yeah. Also, never underestimate the power of a Backstreet Boys haircut.
Absolutely not, because he can still rock it in his 50s.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, he's like in his 50s by the time this game's coming around, and he's still
never let that emo fringe get stale.
No, he can still do it, and he's probably the only person ever, even though he's not a real person, but the fact he's the only person that can still do it, and he's doing it. So something interesting as well from that footage that you just mentioned is that the zombies look as if they've got like behavioural traits as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting new, and I feel like, and we'll get onto this like in more depth in a little bit, but I feel like this gameplay mechanic was something that recent live action trailer was kind of birthed from, is this notion of like the zombies having a remnant of who they were, and there's still a sort of nugget of memory like tucked away there. They've still got this like shadow of consciousness of like what life was before they died.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's very, very interesting that this. I was speaking with Claire actually. We was talking about this whole Resident Evil Requiem thing, and I said, like, how is it that we've never thought to go back to Raccoon City before? Like, it's not like a nuclear bomb was dropped on it. It was a thermobaric bomb. So it's not like the whole place was irradiated.
No.
That you couldn't return to it. So why have we never revisited the remnants and the ruins of Raccoon City before? But now you kind of think to yourself, well, actually, it's probably a great time to take it back there with it being 30 years, because we're going to go back to where it all started and all the rest of it. But what's happened in that kind of time? 30 years is a long time. So, like, what's happened in that time for whatever's managed to survive?
Yeah.
And the idea that the zombies or whatever have continued to evolve as a result of the T virus and things like that. It's going to be interesting to see how that actually works out, or maybe it's something completely different. Maybe some of the things that are there are what they are because it's a strain of something new.
Possibly. Is there has something been said about there's this? Forgive me for getting the name, but the new sort of the villain that's been introduced in the trailers, the guy with the big goggles
with the goggles on.
And that it seems like he's basically like taking advantage of this sort of in-universe notion that Raccoon City has just been like left to rot, and he's basically using it as his own Victor Gideon. That's
Victor
the one.
Gideon.
Yeah, he's basically taken advantage of that and using the sort of ruins of Raccoon City as his like testing grounds, basically.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not a bad like it's not a bad idea, is it? This idea that this is now my playground. Like it's been completely left alone, and I can do whatever I want here.
Particularly because there are Lord knows how many like massive hidden underground labs.
Well, that's I mean, they had the big one underneath it, but where they're getting smaller, like outposts or something like that. I mean, this is something that just talking about, like, is it a new virus that they've used on these zombies, which seem to have some level of intelligence? Is they reference it in the trailer, Elpis.
Oh yeah.
So is that like something new? That is why these monsters and villains are zombies are the way that they are. I don't know, it's an interesting concept that we still don't really know a lot about, isn't it? But yeah, I think a bit of a plot thread that's not really ever been followed up on is this whole thing with Wesker's son Jake from Resident Evil 6. We were just talking about that a minute ago, but do you think it's weird that that's never been followed up on? Because he seemed to have some abilities, didn't he? Like latent abilities. He seemed to be quite fast and quite strong, didn't he? But we've never Wesker's always had some sort of ties to Resident Evil, even when he's never been in the games.
Yeah.
But that's never really been followed up on, has it?
No, it hasn't, and they've not, they've directly referenced Resident Evil 6 in some of the promotional material, and it's mostly in relation to Leon and like where this game takes place in the timeline. But the fact that they've like gone out of their way to bring up 6 again, just as we were talking about how it can't just be a one-off coincidence that they've brought up the Ashfields again, and that Ashfords, sorry.
Ashford,
yeah, and that sort of ties to Outbreak. So maybe in referencing 6 in the promo materials, they're sort of laying the groundwork for more plot threads from 6 to be pulled back in. Because I suppose, like, if you consider the sort of Ethan Winters games as, canonically they sit fine in the timeline, but they're also taking place kind of off to the side somewhere.
I agree, yeah.
It feels like Requiem is
like the true
more
sequel.
a sequel to that sort of first 6 games. I
think
7 or 8 or however many.
Yeah. I because I think 7 and 8 is a weird set of sequel. It's almost like they wanted to just do something a little bit different, almost like they need. I don't know if they did it as like a break to make them think, where do we want to go with this? Do we need to buy ourselves some time? Let's create a new timeline with some new characters and some new events, because they feel so very differently and unconnected. The only way they feel connected is by like the loosest of threads that they put in memos and things like that, and that whole barge that crashes in the swamp or whatever, some sort of umbrella ship or something like that. But like, it just feels very loose, doesn't it? There's not a lot to it, and I don't know if like they were buying time to sort of figure out where they wanted to go next after 6, because
I think they definitely were.
Yeah, because 6 was just such a mess from a story narrative and all the rest. It was just all over the place, wasn't it? And you could tell they didn't know what to do with 6 after 5, but they knew that they wanted to get another game out there after 5 because 5 was so successful. But it's just like, but the biggest problem is that you killed the fucking villain, because Wesker really did become the villain of Resident Evil, and you killed him off, and you've rushed into making another game, and you didn't even know where you were going, and that's why Jake was all of a sudden, because it's like, well, we've still got Wesker. It's like, no, you haven't. Stop it! You're idiots. But and I think it will be interesting to see how, like, if they are going to reference 6 in some way, how else are the other characters going to factor into that? Like, are we going to see the return of any other characters? And is Jake going to be one of them? Because I feel like that is something that they've never really fully explored, is that at the end of the day, he has Wesker's blood within him. Yeah. And we all know what Wesker was. So, he was manufactured, etc. So
I mean, it also needs to be said, though, that the Resident Evil franchise isn't exactly shy about one and done characters, is it?
No, that's it. I mean, how many have we got? We've got Carlos for a start.
Billy.
Billy, he's never been around since before the mansion incident, So in terms of a timeline perspective, what's Billy done? He's like, oh yeah, well, I killed some zombies, but that wasn't really for me, so I just fucked off and I disappeared into the night. Whatever happened to Billy? So
so who knows? And I think that one of the exciting things about Requiem really is that them knowing that it's this game that's landing on like the 30th anniversary of the franchise. It's the first time they're returning to Raccoon City since Resident Evil 3. That isn't like in some sort of like flashback or retelling of there've been games obviously that have gone back to like Welcome to Raccoon City and like the sort of the Chronicles games have like recreated the sort of bits of the mansion incident and the Resident Evil 2's events and things, but this Requiem is the first time in like chronologically in the actual sort of timeline that we've gone back to Raccoon City since Nemesis. So it's such a it would be wild for them to not use this as a way to like even if it ultimately just falls down to like fan service moments, but there's got to be more to them coming back to Raccoon City than just showing you the ruins of the police station. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's clearly going to be a story narrative driven out of it, and you're right. When you think about all these games that have tried to sort of recapture the whole thing of Raccoon City, I mean, again, games like Operation Raccoon City, which isn't canon, but people loved those characters that were made through it, and I think some of them have been mentioned in other titles, so like they've clearly wanted to keep those characters going, but the game was intended for you to sort of give you more of Raccoon City, because people have loved that, and it's been another one of those with Resident Evil where it's like, well, they killed Wesker, the villain, which everyone loved. We finally got him back in a game where he was an actual visible antagonist that you would confront. Killed him off at the end of the game, and then Raccoon City, people wanted more of Raccoon City. They blew it up. Yeah. It's just like, you blew it up before. I mean, I knew that they would have had to have done something. They couldn't just keep churning games out happening in Raccoon City. But again, I can't believe it's taken us this long to sort of get back there. But again, maybe that's part of the story narrative. We talked briefly about the trailer with Michael Monroe in it, which was released just recently, and people again, they're saying that it's the best Resident Evil movie we've ever had, and it's literally a few minutes long. But I think it's because it's filled with these little beautiful Easter egg moments where you've got officers dressed up like Leon in his original RPD uniform, and you've got the streets just laden with fucking chaos, and you've got zombies. You've got that little beautiful Easter egg where, if you listen really carefully, you can hear the Nemesis in the background.
You can just about see it, like see a very, in the sort of smoke and steam like behind a crashed cop car, you can just sort of see his outline like moving in silhouette.
I'll have to have a good look at that, because I still haven't really seen that. It's
really like they've kept it subtle, which is admirable, because they could have very easily just been like, there he is. But
there he is.
But it's probably
big arrow pointing at him.
It's probably more because if they'd have just stuck Nemesis there where everyone could see, that would have just sent the internet down a spiral of being like, oh, it's Nemesis in Requiem.
Exactly. And I think it's we were just talking about this before we started recording, but like, I think there's definitely got to be more to that trailer than just getting you on the hype train of the destruction of Raccoon City and returning, because the fact that you hear those soldiers say Raccoon City is ours, I think that's a plot thread to something. I think there's a unit in there or something, whether Gideon's a part of these people or whether, I don't know, but there's got to be something more about that. I really do think so.
His goons, does he have his own sort of paramilitary operation that's
it, he's got his own little faction, his own little unit that he's working separately from Umbrella, and he's going back. I don't know, but I just feel like it was just such a key moment of the trailer that that line was just in there. They could have said anything. Raccoon City's clean, that they've gone, they dropped the bomb and then they went through and cleaned everything out, so it's absolutely, but the fact that they said Raccoon City is ours, I was like, that means something. That I could be totally wrong,
I think so,
but for me, I just feel like that is a line that is going to have some sort of meaning to the story. But it's a great trailer though, and it's been another great way of amping people up for the game. I think, will Micah Monroe appear in the game?
I would love that.
Can you imagine?
I love her. I was so excited when I found it was her, because I'm a big fan of like It Follows, and
I was going to say you love It Follows,
and The Guest as well. The Guest's probably in my top 10 movies of all time.
The Guest, have I seen? Oh no, I haven't seen that. But Charlotte has. Has that got Dan Stevens?
It has indeed. Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
It's a fantastic movie. I won't go down that route now, because I can talk about that for an hour. But,
I'll watch that though. But
it was awesome seeing her.
She was good in Watcher as well. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that actually. No, I'm aware of that film. But
watch it.
It was good. And Long Legs as well.
Yeah, she was great in long legs. She relayed that part really well, actually.
Yeah,
loads of great fun. But putting her in it, it's like, well, will she have some sort of part in the game? I don't think she will personally.
no.
But
I mean, she was zombified and shot in the head by the end of the trailer,
and not looking very well by the end of the trailer.
No.
But
I saw someone, I can't remember who, but I saw someone else commenting on that trailer online, and they said how cool would it be if at some point in the game you're like, if you're ever like allowed to sort of like explore the sort of city ruins, and you could find that grave with with her sort of rotting corpse slumped over it. That would be that would be really cool.
One of those things. Yeah, that would be a really nice little link to that trailer. It would be so cool. But yeah, I thought it was great. We've obviously got to talk a little bit about some of the weird and wonderful gameplay mechanics, like the crafting with the
blood crafting.
With the blood crafting, that's a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's just sort of a new. I guess it's a way that you can make a physically very fragile character have power without just loading her up with rocket launchers.
Give her more guns.
Because Grace, not to take any assumptions, but I think the message they seem to have been sending us about the game is, when you're playing as Grace, the whole point is that she is very, she's obviously a capable person. She's she's an FBI agent, so she's not.
Well, she's an analyst. She's
she's not a field agent, but she's a smart cookie, but she's also like, a relatively, just a regular young woman. She's not got military training. She's not. These are our assumptions of a female's capabilities. No, not at all. Just in what
these are what they've said to us.
Very
they said that the idea behind Grace was that she was the sort of like the meek, sort of weaker character that would, in these circumstances, would be scared and wouldn't have the ability to defend herself like a character like Leon would.
Yeah.
So it's. I think it's the whole idea of the crafting thing is a way of giving her that edge against stronger characters.
Yeah, very much so. It means that she can do serious damage without her suddenly being able to wield giant weapons
and do cartwheel kicks. And do Hadoukens and shit.
Exactly.
But I think
it's cool. I think usually whenever there's any kind of sort of on the fly crafting mechanic, I know Resi's usually it's to do with
herbs.
Yeah, herbs or like ammo crafting. But this is just, I guess it's just a new take, and it's one of those systems that you look at and you think, oh, is that gonna be another complication for me? And I'm within like half an hour of playing, I'm sure you'll just stop thinking about it, and you'll just like
exactly,
every other sort of like crafting system they've ever had, it just becomes part of the flow, and you'll get into it. And but
I mean, obviously we've also seen, in terms of gameplay mechanics, Leon's capabilities. So I mean, he's got these fucking axe.
He has
tomahawk.
That you need to keep sharpened.
So we've got that, and then he's got more environmental based attacks as well, hasn't he? So you can like prop people up against walls and stomp their heads.
Smash their heads into furniture and things, and also pick weapons up.
That's it, like the chainsaw on the floor,
which is that's very new, because Resident Evil's always been about you find your weapons in very specific locations in the games, and that's sort of it. The Magnum will be in this locker, the shotgun will be
and the fact that now someone's going to drop something.
This idea of sort of being able to pick up presumably like limited use weapons on the fly is it's a very interesting new.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a very action oriented version of the game with Leon, but hopefully it will be done that it's not too over the top, that you don't feel overpowered. That the enemies will still prove a good enough and right amount of challenge. So
and I'm assuming I'm assuming that when you are able to do things like pick chainsaws up and things like that, they will be timed. You'll either, they'll have limited fuel in them, so that it's not like you pick a chainsaw up and now you've got a chainsaw for the rest of the game. It's like you'll have it for the rest of that encounter and then probably have to discard it again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Something I think we sort of skipped over when we were talking about the sort of notion of the dual protagonists earlier on as well was the dual perspectives that you can play the game from.
That's just what I was coming to next. Yeah, about gameplay mechanics is that, so not only have we got two protagonists, we've also got two perspectives in terms of how you play it. So you've got that easy switch at any time with either character between first and third over the shoulder perspectives, and that's sort of like bridging that gap between modern or recent takes where 7 and 8 were first person, and then the remakes that they released 2, 3, and 4 being over the shoulder. Like Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil 4. So interesting.
It is interesting. The thing that I'm sort of interested to see how it feels is that it very much seems like, from everything that's been said so far, that we're fully given the freedom to play the game however we want, but it seems like they're suggesting that the optimal way to play is Grace in first person, Leon in third person.
That kind of felt like...
Which makes sense individually, because we know that Grace's portions of the game are leaning more into the sort of Resi 7 vibe.
Horror,
Whereas obviously Leon's just, Leon's Leon and is very much post Resident Evil 4 Leon.
Yeah.
Which makes sense individually, but as a game, is that going to feel, if you play the game the way that they've sort of envisioned it, it's going to be quite jarring.
I think
shifting between first and third person.
I think I must admit my intention of it is to play it all in third person.
I think I'm the same.
I can understand why totally and 100% that Grace's version of the game will be very atmospheric and very tense playing it from first person. But at the same time, I did have that concern that if not only I was switching between play styles, I was playing between perspectives, that would be really difficult to sort of get my head around. And the fact that you can change it whenever you want on the fly is also great. But I was just like, well, I don't want to constantly be going, all right, I'm just going to see what this is like in first person. I'm going to see what this is like in third person. And just keep changing it all the time. It's just like, no, I'm going to set the rules of engagement for myself and go, this is a third person over the shoulder game. Does it mean that I might just have a quick look and see what it looks like in first person? Yeah, probably. I probably will do. But my intention is that I am playing that game third person.
Yeah. And from what I've seen in the sort of latest gameplay reveals as well, it seems that there are actually little details that change depending on your perspective. So I know one that I saw pointed out was this: when you see Grace in third person, and they made a big deal about, again, as we were just chatting about her being sort of obviously like very sort of overwhelmed and scared in her scenario, that you see her like when she's trying to like run away from things, she like stumbles and is very sort of, as a person would be if you were just a regular person running away from a giant mutant. But that those sort of like unique animations disappear in first person.
Yeah, that's it.
So you just if you run,
your camera just drops down to the ground.
So you just run. There's none of that sort of like
you lose that sort of dramatic element of the which is acted out by a character model. That when you see the stumble, you feel the panic, don't you? But if all you have is just a camera angle in first person, just drop down to the ground, you're just like, oh, what the fuck? It just loses any sort of dramatic flair, doesn't it? I think so.
I can't imagine playing Leon in first person just because I
feel like
what you throw up after like the third roundhouse kick you've done because the camera just spin round every time you do it. Every time
doing a belly to back suplex, and all you can see is this zombie's back going back. It's just like I can't imagine that. It will just feel like COD, but being inside a hurricane and you're just getting thrown around. It's just like, I can't imagine it being any fun at all. Like, you want to see Leon running up the wall like it's Matrix
Yeah.
and landing on someone's head. You know, it's I don't really get it.
I don't want to get motion sickness.
No, definitely not. Yeah,
Playing as Leon.
it's like this generation's Blair Witch Project. You know, just like, whoa, this is moving too much. But yeah, I think that was really interesting that they decided to give you that option. And I kind of understand why they did do that, but then at the same time, I'm like, well, I'd rather you just say, we're going all in on third person now. We gave you first person for 7 and 8 because it was, you know, it was relevant for that type of game we were giving you. But now, like, we're back into Resident Evil, like 4.
Yeah, we're back on the main track now, aren't we?
Yeah, we've given you 7 and 8. We gave you Ethan Winter's story, a bit of a sad shoot in Resident Evil, which, to be fair, let's be honest, although they're numbered, they very much are a side story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if we're getting back on the Resident Evil like train as it should be, then I think we just need to say we're back in third person.
Yeah.
We gave it. There's a reason we gave you 2 and 3 in the remake of 4. In third person is because that's how we want the game to be.
Yeah.
So,
and that is how I'll be playing it.
Exactly. So we've also got the different editions that they've announced. Mm-hmm. So we've obviously just got this regular standard edition where if you pre-order it, you get Grace's Apocalypse costume. And now I believe the reason they've called that Apocalypse is because this game was rumoured to be called Apocalypse for a while.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I think they were going to call it Resident Evil Apocalypse.
That's when the rumours were swirling for a long time that it was going to be at least an open-ended game, if not necessarily full open world. But they've shot that down quite conclusively now. Yeah, which I'm happy for. I don't think Resident Evil suits the open world model.
Nah. I mean, although it seems like you get some element of walking around city streets and everything, I really don't think it's going to be like fucking Fallout. It's clearly going to be story narrative driven. That you're meant to walk down that street. You know, you've not got free reign to go and explore a city. It would be really cool, which is why I'm hoping that they are going to remake Outbreak, because if you could get free reign to walk around Raccoon City in the midst of the zombie outbreak, and you could explore it with friends, and it was PvE. That would be cool as fuck. I mean, that would be great, and I think people want that. You know, but I don't think a main game being an open world game. I don't think it's Resident Evil. I agree. So you get Grace's Apocalypse costume, and then we've also got the deluxe edition, which is everything that you get in the standard. So it's just the game and Grace's costume, but you also get 5 additional costumes, which is some, both for Grace and Leon, and they're like pulled from Resident Evil Village, and the film noir variants. So there's a few different things there. You get some screen filters and some weapon skins, some charms and some audio packs. Although I never use those.
No.
And some additional in-game files, which give you some pack outs of the lore and things like that, so that'll be interesting.
I'm never going to tell anyone else how to enjoy their game, but I mean, do you feel like the sort of atmosphere of like helplessness and tension might be undercut a little bit if you're playing as Grace dressed as Lady D?
yeah, that's it. I mean, like, you all of a sudden might not maybe feel as threatened.
Running around in a big floppy hat and
that's it. You're certainly not going to be able to take it as seriously. No, definitely not.
Yeah, I know there's a long history of silly alt costumes in Resident Evil games, but I don't know. It's just I always feel like it's sort of at least for a first playthrough, it sort of undercuts the intent of the developers. It's like, why go to all this effort of creating this very specific atmosphere and then be like, oh, but you can also dress Leon as a 1920s gangster.
With this long silk scarf and his Tommy gun. Yeah, I never understood that. Like, I think that to use different skins after you've completed it the first time round is one thing, but playing it the first time round, we're using those skins. I'm just like, why would you want to distract yourself from
I know.
everything? Because you're going to be too busy laughing at how ridiculous this whole scenario is. So yeah, I never really understood that. So we've also got with the deluxe edition, you get the really cool steelbook.
Yeah.
And
I have to admit that I've ordered the steelbook version, but I do prefer the artwork of just the standard version.
Yeah, I know with the
sort of crumbling RPG.
I agree. Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, I get a really cool steelbook, but why do I want to just look at Leon's very Barry Burton styled Magnum?
Yeah.
Like, I want a little bit more from my cover than that.
Presumably, that's the Requiem Magnum, isn't it, that they've talked about?
Yeah, well, it's the gun that Leon seems to have as standard, which is weird that he has like a chambered gun rather than something.
Well, does he give it to Grace?
In that footage, it seems like as they're separated, he passes that gun through, doesn't he? So I don't even think she'd be able to use that.
But no, I really like the standard artwork.
Yeah. Probably a game I'll end up owning twice just so I can have the artwork.
Yeah, get the lenticular edition.
Yeah, maybe.
Down the line.
Yeah, because I think the lenticular edition is an Amazon exclusive, but I can't say for certain on that. I might be wrong.
No, I think I've seen it elsewhere, but
yeah,
I feel like in years to come that'll end up being the rare one.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree.
Yeah,
those ones tend to be very limited, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I think that steelbook will be kicking around a bit as well. But they've also put out the Resident Evil Generations pack for Switch 2, which we was talking about earlier, which includes 7, 8, and Requiem, and 7 and 8 are both gold editions. So it includes all the DLC and everything else. And Nintendo will also be getting an exclusive Pro Controller with a Resident Evil Requiem theme on it, which just looks like sort of like newspaper articles and things like that. And I have pre-ordered that because those things end up being quite rare as well. Yeah, so I've got that.
Yeah.
Because I've got like my Legend of Zelda Pro Controller over there, Tears of the Kingdom one. Yeah, because one because I'm a collector of Zelda stuff, but yeah, it's nice, isn't it? But nice. They were rare at one point. They did another round of them, and they're not as rare now. But I remember at one point people were like, I can't get one anywhere, and I was like, yeah, I've got one, thanks.
Yeah, I do like a special controller. I've been umming and ahhing for a long while about. I've not even played the game yet, but the Doom the Dark Ages Xbox controller.
Oh yeah, they're nice, aren't they? Yeah, they are very nice. I do like a special controller. You're right, I do like them. And this Resident Evil Requiem one for the Switch 2. It's nothing special. It's just got like sort of newspaper clippings or document clippings, and it's nothing special. But I've got to get it because it's Resident Evil. So you know.
Yeah, and also while we're on the subject of Switch 2, we've also had the announcement of Amiibos. Leon and Grace.
Said it. I want them.
Yeah, but they're not coming. Everything else is sort of day one, but the Amiibos aren't coming till they've said summer 2026.
Yeah, so God knows what that means. Yeah. But yeah, summer. Bloody hell. You know, so it's a way off. But you know, yeah, they do look really cool. They finally announced and put images out there of what they are, and you've got one of Grace and one of Leon, and Leon's holding his juicy axe. Yeah.
Have they said? I know they've announced him. Have they said what they'll function in the game?
I haven't seen anything. They've just literally announced the what they actually look like, haven't they? Yeah. I'm just gonna pull it up now and see if there was anything. But when I read the articles, there was no. Oh, here we go. So, alongside a whole of exciting updates, first look at Leon S. Kennedy and Grace Amiibos. Ooh. Oh my lord.
This article really wants you to read a lot before they get to...
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like you get some weapon skins for a start.
Oh.
Leon gives you an in-game reward as a weapon skin. And
Good.
it's this hideously disgusting
Oh, it really
green
is.
and purple type
Maybe
thing.
the worst bonus of all time, a weapons
Yeah.
skin. Especially in like a single player game. Like,
Yeah. So who knows? I mean, that might not be the extent of it. Might unlock others. No news on what you get with Grace's amiibo. But yeah, very, very interesting that you get. Surely for how much you'll pay for them, you don't just get a gun skin, which is hideous.
yeah. Although it's probably a fair assumption that the majority of people buying those amiibos aren't buying them to use them.
To get the rewards. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think most people will be getting them to just to sort of have as a collector's item.
Yeah. Stick on the shelf and look nice.
And look very pretty, which is certainly what I'll be doing. I'm not bothered about what you get with them unlocking, but yeah. So yeah, we get the amiibos coming as well. So we've got some really cool stuff coming in terms of what you can actually pre-order and what's going to be released. In terms of merchandise, seeing as we've just touched on amiibos, we might as well talk about the other merchandise, which is just absolutely bizarre. And I don't know who this is really appealing to, but first of all, they're doing a Porsche collaboration, a real well partnership with Porsche. Sees a custom KN Turbo GT designed for the game, appearing as Leon's personal vehicle in Requiem, a first for in-game branded automobiles. I don't know if this is actually going to be a version of the Porsche that you'll be able to buy, but that is a collaboration that they've done. However, the one thing that we do know that is a collaboration and will be available to buy is that they are doing a series of Hamilton watches, limited edition real watches inspired by in-game timepieces, which will launch globally with only 2,000 units available, blending fiction with collectible reality. Now, is it nice? Yeah, I mean, I'm not a watch wearer myself,
No.
but for me, it's a piece of fancy jewelry, and it's not really my sort of bag. But is it pretty cool? Yeah, it's pretty cool. How much is it going to be? I don't fucking know, but it's probably going to be a lot.
Oh yeah, they're not going to be. We're not going to be talking like Casio prices here, are we?
No, definitely not. It's going to be a few quid or a few bucks. So yeah, I think they're going to be pretty spenny, and I won't be getting one, sadly.
No.
Unless
No, that's one for the
for the Uber collectors.
The elite class of Resident Evil fan.
Yes, to which I salute you, sirs and madams, because I certainly will not be getting one, even though I do consider myself to be somewhat of a hardcore Resident Evil fan. But I will not be able to afford one of these watches, no doubt. If you do, well done on yourselves. I'm very proud of you, and you have my respect.
Yep.
So yeah, and then we've obviously already talked about the Switch controller. We've already talked about the amiibos. I think the next collaboration, which isn't physical, however, it is very exciting, and I'm hoping it means that they're going to bring back some of the other Resident Evil themed items that they've done, is a Fortnite collaboration. So because this is going to be the first Resident Evil game to be launched on Epic Games, they are doing a series of Fortnite exclusive themed items for those that buy Requiem through the Epic Store, but presumably they'll also be releasing things that you can actually
You would think
buy.
so. Yeah.
I didn't actually realise. I mean, I'm still fairly new to Fortnite. Really, I play it every so often, and I only started playing it a few years ago. And Resident Evil's already had like a number of collaborations.
I mean,
with...
at this point, what pop culture franchise hasn't had a Fortnite?
John Wick's on it, you know, which kind of makes sense. But yeah, I mean, they recently just did The Office. It's mad, isn't it, that everything has pretty much appeared on Fortnite now. So it only makes sense.
You can play Fortnite as Chapel Ronan now.
Yeah, that's it. Which I'm surprised your missus hasn't wanted to play it.
Oh my god,
she's a big fan of Chapel Run.
She is. She's not really a gamer though.
Yeah.
So, but you never know if anything's going to drag her in.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. You might think that would draw her in. I know Charlotte was straight on it as soon as she saw it was announced. She was like, "Well, I've got to get it. I'm skint, but I've got to get it."
Yeah, I'm not really a Fortnite guy, but I have to admit when they added Alan Wake into it, that was very tempting.
Oh, I bought it.
Did you?
Yeah, I bought it. You know I did.
Did you get the Alan Wake Dead by Daylight stuff as well?
You know what? I didn't actually, because that was sort of one of those games where I was like, if I ever go back to it and play it like I used to play it a lot. If I ever go back and play it, I probably will.
Yeah.
Just so I can say I've got it. Because I have got the Resident Evil Dead by Daylight stuff.
Yeah.
Just because of being such a massive Resident Evil fan. And I am a big Alan Wake fan as well. But then, I did think to myself, do I just get it? So no, I've got it. So if I ever do go back to it, it's not going to have
That's the feeling, isn't it? It's like, I might not play this ever. Yeah. But I know that could.
I know that I have it, and I can do it if I want to. But I did get Alan Wake for Fortnite, and it's a cool skin. So yeah. Anyway, so of course we've covered everything else. I think the last thing that they did announce though was the symphony orchestra.
Oh yes, that's cool.
I'll definitely be going to that. Me and Charlotte have already said, well, that's it, we're going. So we'll definitely be going to that, and I cannot fucking wait.
Is it the Royal Albert Hall?
I believe so, and I think it's in December.
Yeah, what a lovely place that is.
Yes, indeed, and I cannot wait. I think it's only got one date in London as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
But yeah, me and Charlotte have said 100% categorically we will be going, so we shall be there. So yeah, can't wait for that. And in terms of, I mean, they haven't given us any details as to what will be going on there, but you can imagine there's going to be a multitude of amazing music from the series being played. And there is some great music as well, very atmospheric, so very much looking forward to that. And finally, let's just quickly talk about some of the numerous fan theories and lore speculations. So we've touched on some of this along the way as we've been talking through this episode, but there's numerous theories about how other legacy type characters are going to return. We've obviously already seen Leon being announced, and it seems like now that major one has been put to bed, people are already starting to speculate on other type characters. So from some of the footage, people are pointing at heads and sort of silhouettes of people being other characters, ranging from Claire to Rebecca, Jill. So I think I don't really know. It seems like bringing Leon back, that other characters would at least make some sort of appearance.
I was very much of the opinion that once, they were being sort of silly and secretive about Leon for a while, but I think that in making a big deal of finally announcing him, even though everyone had already figured it out anyway, I think it was a little bit of look at this hand. Yeah. So you're not looking at what's happening over here.
Yeah, let's just get it announced.
I think the Leon hoo-ha is definitely going to be. I mean, not misdirection in the sense that there's going to be another main protagonist of a game. I think I think very much now I'm pretty certain that we're going to be playing as Grace and Leon, at least for the vast majority of the game, if not every minute of it. But I think I would not put money against any of the sort of main legacy characters that have direct ties to the Raccoon City trilogy. I would be amazed if we didn't see some, if not all of them.
It kind of feels like a full circle moment that the main key characters would make some sort of appearance, whether these are in cutscenes or whatever.
I feel like we need
the Jill, game together.
Claire, again. Grace, Rebecca,
Bazza's gotta
get Bazza in.
Yeah, come on, Baz.
Yeah,
you've not been up to much. I know you're about 1,000,000 years old, but
will we see a yet again resurrected Wesker? Who knows?
I am glad you said that, because I did wonder, is there going to be some way that they're going to try and shoehorn Wesker back into this? I kind of wish that they would. At the same time, it's kind of like if they did, it'd just be ridiculous, because if he can survive that, then this guy's impervious.
Well, not that
invincible.
Not that it's something that a lot of Resident Evil fans really like to discuss, but there was a very prominent plot point in the short-lived Netflix Resident Evil series that revealed that Wesker basically just had a series of clones of himself.
Yes.
And that is, as much as that show is quite maligned, I quite enjoyed it personally. But
I haven't seen.
I didn't think it was terrible. I mean, it took some broad swings at Resident Evil lore, but I think it was an interesting little sort of thing unto itself. It just depends on how married to everything having to be exactly how it is in the main game's canon. Your enjoyment may vary, but I do think that particular thread could be something. It could be something.
Yeah, well, the talks in other games have talked about the Wesker children, haven't they? I mean, Spencer brought that up in Resident Evil 5 for a start, and then that started this whole thing, because, I mean, in Revelations, Alex Wesker is the villain. So we know that there were other Wesker children. But as for a clone of Albert Wesker, who knows if he will make a return, but kind of feels like it might sort of undermine the villain being Victor Gideon if we have Wesker turn up. But then at the same time, is Gideon just another red herring?
I mean, you know, look how heavily the marketing for Village leaned into Lady Dimitrescu, and then she was literally the first boss fight in the game, and that was it. Done. Exactly. And we didn't have any idea about Mother Miranda until you get sort of quite deep into the game, really.
Yeah.
So that, you know, there's nothing to say that won't be the case again.
That's it. It seems like they've sort of shown their hand quite early on about all this with Victor Gideon and everything else. So who knows? It could be another one of those where it's, okay, Gideon's the one that gets things moving, but he's not the true villain of the game. So who knows? We've obviously already mentioned about some of this to do with the people in the soldiers in the trailer with Michael Monroe, that they said, Raccoon City is ours. You know, is that BSAA? Maybe you know, we don't know if is that BSAA that's somehow making strides into becoming villains themselves. Don't know who they are. Again, we've said that they could be Gideon's men, or I don't know. Anything's possible.
It is. And that's the excitement, isn't it?
It is. It is.
They could do anything.
And clearly, you know, we've got a lot to dig into with Grace and her background, with Alyssa and all the rest of it. So we've got lots to sort of figure out there. So undoubtedly, all of that's going to be going back into the history of Raccoon City. So yeah, we'll see. Well, we've got a lot to unpack still, haven't we? And we're just not going to know now. It's just the countdown that we've got to let tick out and tick down until we get to the main release.
Well, what, about 2.5 weeks away now?
Yeah, it's about it.
Ooh.
Oh my God, why is it here? We just need it. So yeah, it's obviously, this is just about Resident Evil 9. It's a really big year for Resident Evil with the 30th anniversary. We've mentioned it numerous times, so we've got more field reports to come at you. These episodes will just be sort of as and when we have something to say, but with a year like this, I'm sure we'll have quite a few field reports.
There'll be others where, like we sort of touched upon earlier on, it'd be incredible to not have another game announcement before the year's up.
There's got to be, a couple of games announced, I reckon. They've got to get 9 out the way, and then they'll drop numerous other ones to get excited about while people are still on that momentum of 9. Indeed. So,
and also when we get towards the back end of the year, we'll have the Zach Greger movie. coming out as well. Yeah,
for better or worse, we'll just have to find out. I mean, we're all still desperately waiting for a true Resident Evil movie that we can be proud and happy of.
We are. I mean, I loved Weapons. I loved Barbarian. So
yeah,
the guy's got my attention.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd like to think that if anyone could do it, it'd be him. But then when you find out that it's not even like it's this own self-contained story and everything, it's like, why can't we just have a good adaptation of the source material? Yeah. Because it's all right there for us. I just don't understand why we can't have it. It's all we want. It's not much to ask for. Anyway, before we get on that one, I think we should probably leave it there. So, yeah, lots to look forward to. We've unpacked a bit here. Again, this is all just a bit of a summary of what's been announced. If you've got some thoughts and theories, drop them in on our Instagram page, which is at Typewriter Sessions. Easy enough to find. Drop us a message. Let us know what you think, and we'll maybe we'll try and cover that theory in another episode. Let us know what some of the thoughts and theories that were floated around and whether or not some of those paid off and panned out. It'd be good to see if it'd actually be good to do like a retrospective episode of this and say, well, we had some people say this was their theory. They were way off.
Yeah.
And then some people who might be like, whoa, my God, how did you see that coming?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say one way or another we'll have at least one field report where we'll be sort of doing a dive into Requiem post-launch once we've both had the chance to
really get our hands
blast
dirty.
through it. And
yeah, I agree. I think that'd be probably our next field report. So
yeah.
probably drop one in the middle of March, I reckon.
Yeah.
So, okay, peeps, let us know what you think. Let us know what your thoughts are on this whole Requiem thing. Let us know how excited you are, and hopefully we'll be catching up with you about that after the game's released. And keep an eye out for the early March when we'll have our concluding part of our Resident Evil 3 series, Nemesis. So that'll be coming at you start of March. So keep an eye out for that as well. And until then, anything else, James?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm just very happy to be here.
Yes, me too. Me too. Okay, right. Cheers, guys. I'm going to say goodbye. James is going to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.